Life isn't perfect, and neither are we.
Nope. But we know how to face our fears
And have some fun.
and talk about all the messiest things of life.
Like the messiest things.
Get connected to yourself, get connected to others, and get connected to the life right in front of you.
This is The Connected Life with Justin and Abi.
That's me.
That's you.
And you.
So, I'm married to a control freak. If anyone was wondering. Second time we've started this podcast. I've been deflated now. I've lost my vigor for life. My joy and happiness was just like tapped into and sucked right out.
Oh, I'm
Well,
so
Abby,
sad.
how would you like to start this podcast? Please take the reins.
Wait. Just so they know, you started the last podcast.
Yeah, with your bad breath that made me want to vomit in my own mouth. Yeah, you guys missed that. That happened.
That's a really good story.
Yeah, it started out well.
Yeah, and then lots and lots of banter, and then
Yeah, it was veritable banter. I like it.
veritable.
Those are called 25-cent words. That's what someone told me the other day. They were like, oh, that was a great use of that big word. That's like a 25-cent word. You deserve
Veritable.
a quarter. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'll give you a quarter for that.
I don't need your quarter. I have my own money.
You're killing me. Oh, this is delightful.
Hey, what are we doing today? Just jump into it. Go head first.
I'm really
Take the dive.
excited because today we have one of me and you together. We share a common best friend.
Yes, we do. And a short story, I did share the pandemic with her for 7 months in our home, and it was the best 7 months of a pandemic that I've ever had.
You were so glad she was there.
I was. She was delightful. Yeah, mostly because she has a lot of my personality type.
She is your personality type.
In a lot of ways.
You're both INFJs.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh. And so it was like you guys could gang up on me and be like, we make sense over here.
Well, we do. The world is right in our world. So tell us more about
so we've
her.
known Ruth. We've known her for about 10 years. She was a part of a group that I led through healing and transformation. And then she wanted to learn more about that. And so then I trained her in healing and transformation. And then she started doing it in her own life. And currently we have a course running called Living Fully Alive. We're about to start another session of it. We only normally do it one time a year, but this year we're doing it twice. And we have an immersion program where every week you are a part of a group that is going through healing together. You're watching people get breakthrough and be vulnerable and break down and cry. And we had a couple clips last week of what that looked like recently on the podcast. And so go ahead and listen to those. They'll be really good for your soul. But so she's one of the people who leads people weekly through this process because she's so good at it. And anyway, Ruth, do you want to give us like a quick welcome to the show? We're so glad that you're here with us.
Tell them something special about her personally.
Oh, Ruth is one of the most loyal humans I've ever met. One of the most compassionate. And one of the cutest quirks about her is that when she gets stressed, she listens to news to calm her down.
Stressful news to calm her down.
Yeah, I get stressed by listening to the news, but so that would never
And
work
she's
for me.
equally your dyslexic sister. So she's the reason that you actually realized that you have dyslexia.
Changed my life.
And changed your life. And so she's thoughtful, heartfelt, connective, and emotionally intelligent.
Welcome.
I
Ruth.
love that too. Thank you guys. What sweet things. I love that we restarted the podcast for you to say something nice about me and then you almost forgot.
No, it's hysterical.
But they're so right. When I stayed with them during the pandemic, when I feel out of control, I have to listen to news. So it'd be the middle of the pandemic and I'm like listening to podcasts every day. And the coronavirus deaths have risen to... Abby's like, why are you listening to this?
For
it calms me down.
It calms me down. Yeah,
That is
we
funny.
are very opposite.
There's something so soothing about a newscaster's voice, though.
Yeah, I think you just like
Maybe
facts.
it's a British thing.
I think what
I
it
love
is when everything in the world is
Facts
changing.
feel safe.
Facts feel safe.
Facts feel so safe. I always used to joke that my porn was documentaries.
She said porn in quotes. You can't see her fingers because it's not
you
a
didn't see
video.
my fingers.
Oh, it's porn documentaries, huh?
Yeah. But whenever I would feel massively out of control, I'd go and find a nature documentary.
Oh,
Oh, yeah, that's good. Yeah.
I just need facts
Whales,
about something.
just whales.
Oh, yeah. Or I'd come around to your house and I'd give you hours of facts about the Roman Empire.
You did, but I loved it. For some reason, it was soothing. The way that you deliver it, other people deliver facts, and I'm like, shut up. Just stop. You're destroying my ears and my soul all at the same time. But when you deliver facts, there's something like inviting. And
I think it's because she loves the facts.
Yeah, you
so
love
much.
it in such a way that I'm like, I love this too. And you don't believe that people hate you sharing facts on the other side, where other people I think do. So I don't feel that energy. I mean, you believe that people want to engage it, and I made me want to engage it.
Oh,
So-
my fact voodoo works.
Yeah, and she's got fact voodoo today.
Oh, yeah. She's going to be sharing facts
Hey, good
galore.
segue.
Yeah, I know, because
Nice.
we're going to get into the top secret,
One of the top
one of the
secrets.
top secret ways to get transformation inside of your life.
Yeah, and this is one of those things that she's going to talk about the science a little bit behind, but not everybody knows that this is one of the best and easiest ways to get healing and transformation in your life. And so we want to share it with you guys so that you can jumpstart ahead.
Great.
This is like getting the answers to the test before the test.
Oh,
So you don't
wow.
have to study as long.
That's called
You're
cheating.
welcome, people.
That's called
We're
cheating.
going to help people cheat.
Are you endorsing cheating today?
We're cheating the life transformation cycle.
Yeah, that's great.
Cheat sheet.
Here it comes. So what is this
Life
top?
hack.
Hey.
Hey. Wait,
Rated.
before we do that, should we have Ruth just share a couple seconds about who she is?
Yeah, sure. You share a couple seconds. I'm going to grab my Topo Chico while you talk.
Wow. Thanks, brother. Well, hello. My name is Ruth. I am one of Justin and Abby's best friends. Made it. It only took me 10 years to get to that position, but I weaseled my way in.
You sure did.
She's right. I am loyal. Another word for it is persistent.
Deeply
Be my friend. Be
persistent.
my friend. Be my friend. But I am originally from the UK. I'm from a place called Nottingham. If anyone's ever heard of that, it's the home of Robin Hood.
Ooh.
I know. Yes, that's how I tell Americans. It's what it is. And I came out to the States almost 10 years ago to be involved in a personal growth school that Abi was a part of leading. And thought I was only going to come out for 1 year, ended up staying for 10. So never say never to anything.
So true.
But it was 10 of the most unexpected but transformational years of my life. I remember showing up and not, I didn't know what self-hatred was. I didn't know what shame was. I didn't know what self-consciousness was. I didn't, all I knew was that I hated my life. I hated being in my own skin. I was so shy, so quiet, so shut down. You
This
can
is
ask Abby
real.
and
This
Justin.
is
They
real.
saw it.
Oh my
Fun fact,
gosh.
Justin did not like me when he first met me.
No, not
He
at
was
all.
like, this girl hates herself. I don't
hates
want to be
men.
around
And hates
her.
men. I can
And hates
feel
men.
how bad you hated men. I was like, oh my gosh. It's true. How
Yeah,
far
you
you've
nailed it.
changed. You're just an entirely different, when you're saying that, I'm like, you're an entirely different human being than the one we met.
All it took was 10 years, people.
There's hope for you
There's
too.
your life hack.
1 decade. Boom.
I'm kidding. Well, I mean, kind of, but
Yeah.
we're all on a journey.
Yeah.
And it was, Abi and Justin were a big part of that journey of transformation for me, of learning that I had shame and self-hatred and what it meant to live vulnerably, to learn how to love myself, to learn how to do conflict with people. Abi and Justin have probably been two of the safest people for me inside of conflict, where I remember when I was living with them, Abi would confront me and she'd be like, whenever you're triggered, you're just gone. You're gone, out the door. And I was like, yeah.
And?
Is that a problem? What's your point? But all that to say, they've been two of the safest people in helping me grow in areas of conflict and learning to push in for connection where it felt scary and it felt out of control. And it's been a 10-year journey of learning and growing, but also leading. I got hired on staff by the school that I came to attend, and had the fun of leading groups of 5 people, 10 people, 70 people throughout
80 people,
9 months.
300 people.
Lots of people.
Lots of people
through their inner healing journey. And I think you learn as much when you're leading as you do when you're growing.
Oh,
absolutely.
I totally agree.
100%. And then, yes, I just left them. I abandoned them this summer in the middle of the pandemic. I was like, peace out, America. And came back to the UK, and I'm doing my master's in
psychology.
Okay, so tell us about, and when you went there, it was fascinating when you started doing your master's. You started learning all the science behind what you had already learned in the groups. So why don't you share a little bit about that?
Yeah. I mean, I started doing the master's degree, and I was like, oh my gosh, there's like technical words for all of the different things that we've talked about for the past 10 years. Like, who knew? Abi and I would have, this is just a side note, rabbit trail, but Abi and I would have conversations about how there's got to be like different types of empathy. Like some people feel empathy and some people think empathy. So she'll feel it and I'll think it. Turns out that's a real thing. There's like whole papers and research projects about different types of empathy. So, it was a whole new world of being able to put language and ideas to things that we've lived, right? That we've lived for the last 10 years for ourselves and walking other people through. And there was one concept that I came across, which I'm actually doing my dissertation on. And this area of psychology is called the social cure. And
I like the name of that.
The social cure.
I'm actually going to steal that. People can hear it right now. That's what I'm going to call this new program that I'm starting. I'm going to call it the social cure.
I like that.
Yeah,
you heard it here first.
You can like reference some papers in the...
Yeah.
Yeah. So I came across this area called the social cure, and I started reading up about it, and I was like, oh my gosh, I think this is what I've seen play out over and over and over and over again, with me being in groups where we're going after inner healing, with me leading groups where we're going after inner healing. It's what we see play out in the Living Fully Alive group. And it's one of those things that once you see it, you almost can't unsee it. And it's so simple, but so profound at the same time. So I'll go ahead and tell you a little bit about what it is, shall I?
Yeah.
So there's a whole area of social psychology that's called social identity theory, and which sounds very smart. And it's by some people called Chevful and Turner, but I can't say their names, which that sounded less smart. But, dyslexic problems. They basically have this theory where it's this idea that whatever kind of social groups we're a part of, we use them as like self-esteem collateral. So if we're a part of a social group that we feel good about, we'll actually get self-esteem points from it. We're a part of a social group that we don't feel good about, we lose self-esteem points. And it kind of talks about how people inside of different social groups will view each other differently, then they'll view other people inside of different social groups. So it's an area of psychology that it goes into politics, it goes into education, it goes into all sorts of different things. So basically what the social cure did is they took this idea of social identity theory, where you can get identity points from being a part of being connected to a group, and they applied it to health. So they started doing all these different research articles into different areas where people were using groups for healing. So they started looking at like Alcoholics Anonymous. They started looking at cancer support groups. They started kind of looking at almost even military groups, like the way that they promote brotherhood, the way they promote like a sense of family and identity. And what they began to find was the more people felt like they belonged to a group, and it didn't even really matter what the group was. Like They also did studies where they looked at people who were part of a community choir or people who were part of like a dance group or something. What they began to see was the more you felt like you belonged to a group, not only the more self-esteem points would you build inside of you, but it would actually begin to have a beneficial impact upon health areas. So if you were struggling with addiction, for example, Alcoholics Anonymous, being a part of a group actually gave you collateral to be able to overcome some of the addiction hurdles, like the strength to keep pursuing the abstinence. They found that in cancer survivor groups or cancer patient groups, that it would actually boost people's immune system. Inside of military studies, they found that it boosts bravery, it boosts camaraderie, it boosts courage. And they started kind of looking at it in all of these different areas. And I began to think, like, this is genuinely what we've seen play out over and over again. Is there's something about being a part of a group that enables you to overcome things in a way that you're not able to by yourself.
Which feels like such a case for family, as a side note. Like we see a lot of family units broke down in culture today. And it's like, oh no, at the core of us, we were created for relationship. And inside of relationship, especially even the family relationship, it shatters the lie that we are abandoned and we are alone. Yes. And that at the core of it ends up empowering us to really step into who we're made to be, the most free, expressive version of ourselves that we were designed for. Anyways.
And there's something interesting about, like we teach on this in Living Fully Alive, about the power of validation and feeling seen and attuned with and understood, and how so many people get stuck in the pain cycle because they don't know how to get validated. And basically our brains are wired to not go all the way through the pain cycle if we're not validated. And so when you're going through something in a group, what is happening is you're naturally feeling validated by hearing other people's stories. You're hearing somebody else say something that makes sense to you. You're
resonates.
That, I'm not the only broken person. I'm not the only person who struggles with this, who's scared or feels lonely. And you may not relate to everybody, but in a group, there's enough diversity that you typically start to hear pieces of your own life story that break shame and fear and that feeling like I'm worse than everybody else, or my dysfunctions are what make me not belong. You start to be able to like experience that that's not true.
Yeah. I mean, as we're wrapping up our LFA immersion program, Abi actually sat down in a Zoom call and asked people about their experience. And we ended up getting actually a lot of feedback about this exact thing. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I was blown away. My face hurt from smiling so big and from like tearing up with people as they shared. And over again, it was the community aspect that transformed people's lives. And so we're going to play a clip really quick, highlighting exactly what we're talking about. In this clip, Christine, who's just a sweetheart, one of our LFA family members from Sweden, shares about her experience with the community and how it's impacted her life.
So, okay, LFA has changed my life, which is everybody's story, but it's also my story. So I want to say that. I came into this course second time around believing I was a 2 and that I was going to struggle still with the codependency stuff and all of the victim mentality stuff because of my mother and stuff. And then I'm going out of this course realizing I'm an 8, realizing I'm actually really powerful, realizing that when I go into the helper, the servant, the I focus on you, not to focus on me part, that's actually when I'm in stress. That's actually when I don't feel safe, when I need to protect my heart. And that protection is a really big deal for me. So I'm like, let's explore this new revelation of who I am and who I get to be, because there's an evolvement and there's like this evolution going on within my heart. And I came into LFA believing I would never feel safe in community, ever, ever, ever. That I could be the best community for everybody else. I could create the best space for everybody else, but I would never let anybody see me, really. Never be vulnerable. And then week 1, Ryan was like, and his heart was on the table and all of us was like, what's going on? And after that, it was like the floodgates were open. And I was like, okay, so I'm going to entertain the thought that maybe I could share vulnerably as well. And then people in the chat were like, when I did the first time, rooting for me, loving on me. And then they kept doing that throughout the week. They kept doing that. The consistency of it. It was not just one message. It was like these persons, I mean, Kelly, Ryan, Kim, Desiree, my people, Francois, Nina, they kept showing up and kept inviting me into relationship and into community. And I was like, this is new. This is brand new. And now I'm moving out of LFA the second time around, realizing I'm an A, and realizing that if I want to have community in my life outside of the LFA bubble, vulnerability is key. And that feels super scary, dangerous. Potentially it will kill me. But I don't want to die wondering what it would feel like to have what I have with you guys, with the people I'm close with here. I want to know. And I'm shaking saying that, but I want to know. So I'm going to explore what it's like to be an 8 and explore to the way forward in vulnerability. And yeah. So thank you for changing my life.
Oh, you're so precious.
Thank you.
And you're so cute. And I'm like, if I was in Sweden, I would be one of your people.
Oh.
Well, you're so adorable. You know what I mean? Like when you're talking about, I want to learn how to do this here. I'm like, well, there could be a people lined up around the block to be friends with you.
Well, and can I say one quick thing? I'll just take 1 minute. Several of these guys have said that. This community have said that. And I'm realizing I'm showing up for real with these people. They see me for real. They hear me for real. And they want to be connected to me, even though I'm a mess most of the time. And I'm realizing if they want that, maybe my friends here won't be so shocked, because I shocked my friends today saying some things because I'm like, I'm on the vulnerability train. But I mean, if these guys can love me from across the ocean, then maybe my friends here will as well. So I'm going to be seen. 2021 is going to be the year I'm seen.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, that was so good.
She's such a little cutie.
Yeah, she is.
Ugh. Okay, Ruth, I know that you had more to share about this, so why don't you keep that going?
Yeah, and I think, such a huge part of what is really painful and destructive about trauma is the isolation piece.
Yes.
Is that when you go through trauma, like it separates you. You get separated from the people who are supposed to keep you safe, or the people who are supposed to love you. Whether it was those people that inflicted the trauma or not, it creates a fracture. And what we begin to see happen inside of this social cure space is there's something about the not aloneness. Like, I'm not alone in this struggle. It's not just me that's struggling with this. Other people are going on the journey, that begins to heal that isolated piece. And it's almost like when the isolated piece can begin to get healed, other things are able to click into place.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because that isolation, a sense of isolation, it at the core of it becomes this lie of, I'm not loved. Love doesn't exist for me. We're made for, in and through love. There's something about at the foundation of love inside of each individual is what causes us to be alive, to feel life, to engage the world around us, right? And when we're feeling deeply alone, it's really saying, I don't feel loved. And that's so debilitating, and it creates depression and disconnection, and it causes us to feel very uninspired. So the minute we start feeling the connection to the world around us, it's like, oh, I'm reconnecting to humanity. There's care, there's love, there's interest. I matter. The world matters. People matter. And it begins to create inspiration inside of someone. It starts healing those depressive places and all that. Yeah. Super powerful.
I think one of the things that they talk about it doing the most is it begins to create a sense of purpose inside of people.
Right.
It is bigger than just themselves. I think we can all agree, right? Like when you're in pain, you are the biggest person in your world.
That's all that matters. Yeah.
You're so introspective and so internal.
Yeah.
But there's like such a lack of purpose to that is able to kind of pull us and draw us along in the journey. And what they begin to find is that when people feel connected to other people and a part of a group, it gives a sense of, I'm living for more than just me. And there are actually studies that show the more people engage with the group, the more they want to give and receive help. The more they want to give and receive help, the more they feel like they belong to a group, the more they grow.
This reciprocal process. Yeah,
totally. I would watch this happen in groups. And this is probably one of the things that I go after the most when I'm building a group, is if we can get people participating and engaging in the group. So the difference is, like, in order for this to actually click in your life, you have to participate and engage in the group. There's a sense of buy-in and I belong to this group. I'm attaching my identity to it in some way, shape or form, even if it's as small as a community choir. And as soon as you get people engaged in that space and you get them giving and receiving help, all of a sudden their buy-in into the group and their buy-in into each other is so much bigger and so much more powerful. And there's something really transformative, I think, about giving and receiving help from people who are on the same journey as you. Like, it's one thing, I would notice this leading groups, it's one thing as the leader to stand there and walk someone through something, or lead them into a space of breakthrough, and people kind of put that in a very specific box. They're like, oh, okay, well, Ruth did that, or Abi did that, or Justin did that, but that's not me. I can't do that.
Right.
Or the person next to me can't do that. But when we begin getting people engaged in this space of giving and receiving help, they begin to see, oh, this is possible for all of us. Like,
I have something to offer. I have something to offer that will change the world around me. Yeah.
And it begins to make help feel more accessible. Like, if help isn't just
one individual,
the leader, it's, oh, Joe Blogs next to me. Like, he can give me a hug and he can tell me how much he loves me. I mean, watch this happen in the Living Fully Alive course, right? Like, people pipe up and they affirm each other and they say, like, I'm so proud of you. And just the act of being seen by your peers, essentially, multiple people who are going through the same process, I think really begins to break the hopelessness that I don't know where to get help. I don't know how to get help. And it begins to open up this prospect of, like, well, community all around me is supposed to be part of the answer to bringing. Yeah.
It's fascinating because I've watched this Living Fully Alive. We did the immersion program, which created this place. There's a weekly heart sync where people are sharing what they're going through and working through stuff together. And then there's weekly live consulting. And there's so much chatting going on through the chat over Zoom. All of this is online, so people can do it wherever they want. But people are chatting all over the place, and people are making friendships with people across the world. And now when they're having a hard day, they have somebody that they can message. They have somebody that they can talk to. I talked to one girl this week that, like, needed a place to stay, needed to leave a situation that wasn't good for her, and needed a place to stay. And somebody from the group was like, come stay with me and come. And so there, it begins to have that feeling of, I have resources.
Right.
I have places I can go to get love, to get my needs met, to share, to be known. I am not alone having to figure this out by myself.
With a group of people that have a shared set of values, that understand the approach that you're coming from. So that's something that is even more incredible, is when you have that sense of shared, not just values, but communication,
common language
around stuff. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So in, like, the Living Fully Alive group, they're all working on compassion. So it's a place where they want to learn how to have compassion for each other. They're all working on owning their own things. And so it's a beautiful, I'm not actually trying to, like, keep bringing it back to LFA. It's just something currently in my brain that is a group. But I mean, in all of the groups that we've led, there is that thing, if you can take the main leader out of as the source. And that's why I love Alcoholics Anonymous.
Equip everyone else. Yeah.
It's not about one leader. It's about the group.
Everyone has
dynamic.
Sponsors and stuff like that have something to give away to each other. Yeah.
Everyone can give. Everyone can contribute.
Yeah, I remember the first group that I led when I was learning how to be a leader. And I just kind of assumed that group would happen. Like, I just kind of assumed, like, well, you know, I care about love and I care about breakthrough and I care about all these things. So this is what will happen inside of my group. And it didn't really super play out that way that year because, I mean, it did a little bit, but because I was basically relying on me to be the one who was the source of breakthrough for people. I was relying on my one-on-one interactions, or me giving people information, or me kind of like leading people through things.
Which is exhausting.
Which is exhausting, FYI. I never do that.
Yeah.
I hated my life after that. I was like, leave me alone. I've created a monster. And the next year that I led a group, I was very clear, like, okay, I am not doing that again. Like, I have to actually utilize the power of the group. Mm-hmm. And so I remember making the group much more of a focus than me.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna like really focus on creating something that you can feel a part of, that you feel like you have ownership over, that has common language, that has inside jokes, that has kind of an identity.
Yeah.
Essentially, like we're creating, a group identity. And that was such a game changer in the amount of breakthrough that people got. Because all of a sudden, it wasn't just me that was providing the breakthrough. It was 70 other people. Mm-hmm. And I love what you mentioned earlier. This is actually kind of something that they show in the research. Part of why belonging to these groups feels so transformative to people is because it begins to hit on that space of safety. Like, I have resources available to me, not just the resources of people, but it begins to create a sense of like, I need somewhere to stay. Mm-hmm. I actually have a community, a group of people around me who are able to like have me stay for a couple of nights, and we would watch this happen, right? Abs in groups. People would cook for each other, or they'd like donate money to each other. They'd
give people rides.
Give people rides. There's something about the practical expression of love that you're able to demonstrate inside of a group that is, again, begins to break that isolation, break that I'm aloneness, break that it's all on my shoulders to make sure that I'm okay. It's all on my shoulders to make sure that something happens.
Yeah, and there's such a sense, I mean, so many people grow up with self-sufficiency, or they don't have parents who know how to lead them emotionally or teach them emotional skills. And so we often have this sense, I know Justin's had this a lot of his life, like, I don't know what to do and I have to figure it out on my own. Yeah. And that's
super debilitating. And that created a whole lot of depression, stress, suicidal ideations and stuff, because it was like, well, I don't know what to do. What's the point of life? I'm all on my own anyways. And there was a lot of lies tethered to that concept of abandonment.
Yeah.
And when you can create groups like this, I believe that all human beings at the core of them struggle with abandonment. Mm-hmm. Like, there's a disconnection from love. We're scared of being disconnected from it. We believe it can be removed. Yeah. And so there's this war with abandonment, and social cures. They start like building a muscle inside of our head and our heart that says, I am not alone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's did you have anything to say, Ruth?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is like, it's hard to articulate, isn't it? I think, unless you've kind of watched it or experienced it. Mm-hmm.
I want to add something.
It really is. Sorry. Oh, yeah. Go for it.
I was just thinking, I was thinking about watching, because I've been part of those groups that Abby's facilitated in the past. And I remember one moment where one of the young men was having a lot of struggles in his masculine identity. And I remember when all the men rallied around him.
That he wasn't man enough.
Yeah. All the men rallied around him, picked him up on their shoulders, and started dancing around the room. Like, I think there was probably 30 to 40 men, something like that, cheering him and started singing for he's a jolly good fellow. And you watch that camaraderie suddenly happen, and you watch something shift in that moment for him, when there's this validation of a group that says, I love you just as you are. I see you as you are. I see the pain that you're in. I also see who you truly are apart from the lies that you believe. And you watch, bam, one moment that started redefining how he approached life.
Yeah, I remember a story where I had a sweet girl who was terrified. She had, right before she came to be with us, she was having sex with a guy who didn't want to date her. Like, wasn't interested in her enough to want to be with her.
Wanted
just
the sex.
Booty call. Mm-hmm. Yep. And she had so much shame over that. She's like, I don't have self-worth enough to even require that somebody date me. Like and I think that's a lot of self-awareness to even be aware of that. But I remember asking her if she wanted to share that with the group because she was terrified that people would see her different if they knew and that she wouldn't feel loved. And so I remember her sharing that, and immediately, like, what people don't understand, I'm getting so wrecked by this over and over again. When we're vulnerable, people are drawn to vulnerability. A lot of us learn to not be vulnerable. We have the wrong concept of vulnerability. So it's like, if I share my deepest secret, or if I tell you that I'm hurt or whatever, but vulnerable in like, I'm not using my protectors. When we actually bring our protectors down, those
walls, those emotional things that we hide behind, the anger and the
fear,
the logic,
disconnection, the logic. Yeah. When I bring all that down, I've never had somebody reject me in vulnerability. Now, I have felt vulnerable and had people reject me in those moments, but I can look back and be like, oh, all my protectors were up, even though I internally felt really vulnerable. But the idea is vulnerability really draws empathy, because people are like, oh, I can relate to that. Oh, I can connect to that. Yeah. Oh, I felt scared of that before. So she gets up and she shares, I'm scared that everybody will look down on me and think I'm not worthy of being here and that I'm too broken. And the whole room, you could just feel empathy. And this is the same thing that I see happen in LFA, in the immersion program every week. You can literally feel the entire atmosphere. You can look at all the screens and you can see people crying with people crying, and this empathy rose up, and all of these and the men came and they were like, you're so worthy of love, and they like got down on their knees in front of her and was like, I'm so sorry for how much pain you went through to teach you that you weren't worthy of this. And then the women came and were like, we love you, and I've struggled with that too. Like I know what it's like to want men's approval and to not feel worthy. And she got surrounded, but it wasn't just that moment. I mean, the moment was beautiful. She cried. We all cried. There was a big, huge hug, and that was beautiful. But what was more beautiful is the entire year, because people knew that people were speaking into her identity and her lovability. They were
deliberate.
And they were engaging her the whole year long. There was this like people were on her team. You could feel that people were on her team. They had
to buy into her story because her story was made available for them to participate in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, even when I showed up in Reading and was a part of Abi's first group, I remember now I'm from England. I did not talk about emotional things. I did not do vulnerability. Like I said, I didn't know I didn't know anything.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like the third week or something of being in the group. And I just really felt like I was supposed to get up. But Abi was like, does anyone have something they want to share? And felt like I was supposed to get up and tell everyone that I had struggled with masturbation since I was 13. And which I had maybe told like 2 other people in the world up until that point. Yes. And that only happened like a couple of days before.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of wanted the ground to swallow me whole.
Like, no.
But something really, really powerful began to happen in that moment that I think only now, when you're kind of looking back on it, you're able to see really what that was. There's something about stepping into vulnerability in a group that breaks judgment in a radical way. Like, I think self-judgment and shame are such personal, internal things, right?
Yes.
Like, I mean, they cause isolation. They thrive in isolation.
They cause us to freeze, to shut down, to get depressed, to numb out, to dissociate, to judge other people.
Yeah. And when we have those spaces of shame and self-judgment and they're just inside of us, they roll around and it gets bigger and it gets stronger. And we think, oh my gosh, if anyone ever knew that I had a struggle with masturbation, they'd never want to speak to me. They'd never want to be part of my life. And then there's something so powerful and tangible about having people see you in the spaces that feel really vulnerable, in the spaces that we've judged. And it's almost like you're literally getting to see played out for you what not alone looks like and what not alone feels like. And it began to break those spaces of self-judgment. It began to launch me into this healing journey. And I felt so apart and so celebrated by that group. And it was the choosing into the group with the vulnerability that really was the transformational piece. I love the stories you guys are sharing. I had a guy, several guys in my groups who would come up and they had so much shame about pornography, so much shame about struggling with sexuality stuff. And you would watch the guys kind of dare to share, really. And you would watch that sense that you're talking about, like that empathy begin to rise up in the room. Like all of the guys are coming around them and they're like, "You're so brave, you're so proud, can't believe that you did that, man, like you have balls of steel, I'm so proud of you." And then you'd watch the women melt. Like you would watch the women melt
they can see the humanity.
Yeah, they can see the shame, they can see the self-hatred, they can see the recrimination that's going on inside of someone. And that we really are compelled to move towards people in their vulnerability. We're compelled, like, I think when we actually see vulnerability in front of us, we want to reach out and hold somebody or tell them that we love them or affirm them.
Well, it's something about seeing someone's authentic humanity.
Yeah,
is probably how I think I'd personally define it. Like when we see the truth of humanity that's not hidden behind, Abi says protectors, but facades, the plastic mask we wear, whatever it is. There's something that is very disarming about our human innocence. Our messiness, honestly, put on display in our is very innocent. It's like you suddenly see the child within. That you get past these hardened walls and you go, "Oh, there's the child. There's a child that's truly scared or doesn't understand things or doesn't have it all put together." And we were able. It disarms our judgments and our accusations so often.
Yeah,
and it's everything we want to be. Sorry,
it's an interesting thing because oftentimes we judge by separating and categorizing,
right?
And so it's easy if you've been hurt. Like, let's say I've been hurt by men's sexuality. It's very easy to just villainize men.
Yeah. Oh man, they're terrible, horrible.
Yeah. Instead of seeing the nuance. And so inside of a group, when somebody's being vulnerable and sharing what the actual journey is like, you begin to have to humanize somebody again.
Right.
Which is literally that's the whole porn industry is built on learning how to dehumanize people. And so in group healing scenarios, you're working on humanizing. I remember one of the things that happens every time I lead a group is there are people who are like, people are feeling like there's people who are like, I feel uncomfortable, everybody's crying, I don't know what to do, and they end up having all these judgments come up that they recognize that they've lived their whole lives. I think that emotions are weak. I think I'm weak when I have emotions. I think other people are weak when they have emotions. And you begin to see in a culture like this where people get to lay down the judgments they've had against other people, not even them specifically, but just like, oh, I think emotional people are weak. Like you see people begin to lay those judgments down, and that gives them permission to become that themselves, to actually, oh, I am allowed to feel. I can value that you're feeling. Now I can give myself permission to feel. It's basically what we're expanding on is what you said. It breaks down judgments.
Totally. Which, it pulls on like common humanity, right? Like when we begin to break down those judgmental walls. I can't remember who said it, but we've talked about it before. Like most people's wounds come down to like 4 or 5 core emotions. There's like abandonment, there's shame, there's self-hatred, fear. Everyone can relate. Like these are like universal plights. And I think when you begin going on that vulnerability journey with the group, and part of the power of being in a group is you get to see that common humanity, of we are all the same. We're all going through the same struggle on some level, in some way. If Justin gets up and shares about his self-hatred, I can relate to it. Mm-hmm. And because I can relate to it, there's a sense of, I want to be there for him. I want to help him. I want to champion him. I want to throw him forward.
So something I'd like to encourage you, if you're listening, there's so many different applications for this. If you're a part of groups, I mean, like if you're a part of a church or Alcoholics Anonymous or a choir or a soccer team or whatever, to actually consciously get to enjoy and like recognize with gratitude the gift of what that brings into your life, to actually get to think about it and be like, wow, I do get a sense of belonging when my volleyball team all high fives me this way. And that sense of actually being grateful for what you're surrounded with. I think also if you're involved in groups and you're not feeling like it's contributing to your life, oftentimes that's because you're not showing up with vulnerability, where you either are offering something, like I'm giving something to other people, or I'm allowing myself to have needs from other people. And so if you're just standing watching the group, but not ever allowing yourself to have needs or have a voice or to contribute to other people, you're going to miss that sensation that feels so life-giving. Yeah.
So did I hear you say stop hiding? If you're in a group, stop hiding.
Yeah.
Participate. Show up.
Yeah. Engage. Yeah. Be vulnerable. Even sometimes it's vulnerable to contribute and say like, hey, I don't have much to offer, but I could cook somebody a meal. Does somebody need that this week? Or just, there's so many ways that if you begin to contribute, and it takes risk for some people to do that, but it's really powerful. Yeah.
And it's vulnerable even to say that you want to belong.
Yeah.
Like I think you watch so many people be in group scenarios and they're kind of like on the outskirts, on the fringe, like they're desperately inside of themselves wanting to belong, wanting to feel a part of something, but that fear of rejection, that shame, that I'm not going to be accepted if I want this, I'm not going to be accepted if I try to make a move towards this, is often the thing that actually holds people back from belonging. It's the self-protection of I'm going to be rejected if I try, but there really is something about just choosing, like, I'm going to belong to this group. Yeah. I'm going to choose that this group is a part of me. I'm going to choose that it's something that I want to feel connected to. Just as like a random example, my dad is like a massive soccer fan. Mm-hmm. And he would, not at the moment, obviously, because of Corona, but in usual times, he'd go to like every football match and he's like in the crowd and he's a part of it. And like it was really vulnerable for him initially to kind of decide that he wanted to be a football fan because he hadn't been supporting the team. And he was like, I'm going to be on the outside. I'm not going to know what's going on.
Yes. Right.
Yeah, everyone, these guys are like hardcore. They've been there their whole lives. Like they're born on the football pitch, basically. And here I am, like a newbie. And you want to belong so bad. But the thing that really kind of shifted it for him was there was this moment where he just decided like, well, this is what I want. I want to belong to this. I want to be a part of this. So I'm just going to show up like I am.
One of the things, I've talked about this before in the past, but at 25, one of the things that was most life-changing for me personally was when I recognize fear, and I say this, fear is a gateway between us and the destiny of who we're created to be. It's this door that stands in front of us that we actually have to pass through in order to become our most authentic self. And in that moment, as I started realizing that, I made a promise to myself that I would face all of my fears, no matter what it costs me. And so there's a lot of people that don't show up inside of group settings and stuff like that because they haven't actually solidified a yes. They're actually allowing fear to drive them. And this is, again, it's a little bit of a bunny trail, but a side note, if you're listening and the idea of participating vulnerably inside of groups and giving your life over to that space feels terrifying, I'm telling you, the only true path to freedom is to begin to start facing fear, no matter what it costs you. It's going to cost you in vulnerability. It's going to be overwhelming at times. It's going to be sad at times. You're going to have conflicts at times when you do that. But the payoff that you get on the other side is so immensely greater than living a life of isolation and loneliness. And that was something that I struggled with early on, was that isolation and loneliness, because I believe that if I'm not part of a bigger group, then I can't be hurt. It's like this idea that I can control how much hurt or how much pain comes in. It's an illusion. A friend talked to me the other day about an exchange with one of his friends. It's like a traveling nomad. And the guy just picks up and leaves whenever he wants to, and talked about how he just doesn't put up with people's stuff. When he wants to go, he's ready to go, and he leaves. And really what he's saying is he's living on an island, isolated, because he's terrified of the cost of relationship and terrified to face his fears and doesn't want to pay the price of it. But it's unto this. The greater price we'll pay is a lot of emptiness, a lot of dreams unfulfilled, and a lot of pain that accumulates that we're not aware of until it feels like it's far too late.
Yeah. I will say this. I want to kind of balance also what you're saying, because I think everything you're saying is so good. And I wanted to say, like, sometimes I think it's valuable to belong to several different places, because, like, my volleyball team isn't going to meet all of my emotional needs, but still having a sense of belonging there really can impact me. And so the idea would be like to have several things, but I was thinking about the only thing I wanted to balance about what you just said, Justin, was we just did our Deconstructing Faith series. And I think we need to push past fear to engage and involve. There are times when you need to look at a group and say, this group doesn't have enough of my core values. This isn't where I should engage to belong.
Sure. And I wasn't saying that.
I didn't think you were.
No.
I didn't think you were saying that. I just wanted for our listeners listening.
Right.
Because people will like blanket statement. They said to push into our fear and push past vulnerability. And I'm like, yes,
right.
But also choose a culture that feels
making a healthy
safe.
Assessment about your culture. And is it that I'm just being scared here, or is this not aligning with a real value system that is very helpful? And
Yeah, and I mean, just to bring it back to the research, exactly what you're saying is true. So they've discovered that basically the more groups you can belong to, like the more this pays off. So they've looked at people who are coming out of like traumatic situations and experiencing post-traumatic growth. Well, they find that if they belong to a church and they belong to a survivor.
Post-traumatic, you said growth, but did you mean post-traumatic stress?
So post-traumatic growth is like where you can experience growth out of trauma.
The way to get out of the trauma.
Yes. Yeah. So like developing resilience and more vulnerability and courage. And they found, if they belong to a church, but they also belong to a community group and they also belong to a choir, like all of these things add together. So it's not just putting all the weight on one group.
On one group, yes.
Good.
And also what you're saying is this effect actually only works if your values are congruent with the group. So a good example would be, I'm from the UK, so I'm not exactly a firearms carrier. So if I was to join like a pro firearms group, a gun group, I don't know what you call
NRA,
it,
maybe
a militia,
an NRA meeting. I probably wouldn't be collecting self-esteem points from it.
Or feeling like you belong.
Or feeling known, or feeling like I belong, or feeling like, oh, I'm not alone in the way that I think. I'm not alone. I'll be thinking, I'm so alone. So it is a part of the effect is kind of like, is there congruence between what I believe and what the group believes? And that's more than okay to make decisions about groups that we belong to. Actually, it can have more of a detrimental effect sometimes to keep yourself in a group that
you're not congruent.
And I think in any group, you have to find you're always going to have disagreements in groups, and that's actually healthy to have differing perspectives. That's a great thing. But we're talking about foundational value systems, especially, and to relate around. So for me, foundational value system would be like kindness, compassion, care. I'm not going to join a frat. Like, I'm not going to go backwards in time and go join a frat where their value is taking from women, maybe, or doing destructive things to themselves and other people as a way of bonding. I'm like, that's cool for them if that's what they want. I'm not going to participate in that type of system, I will never feel like that's fulfilling something inside of my heart. So whatever those are, you have to discover foundational life values that you have. And do these people share some of those? I would say. What do you think, Ruth?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think you kind of touch on another point there. I think one of the things that we really gain when we belong to a group that has congruent values is you get perspective taking.
Mm-hmm.
So like, again, when we're kind of on our own and we're processing, like let's talk about an inner healing group. If I'm on my own and I'm trying to work through the LFA course,
mm-hmm.
I'm just filtering it through my lens and my perspective
mm-hmm.
the whole time. So I'm going, oh, this is what Abi and Justin must have said. It must mean this. It must mean that. Okay, da, 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 da.
Yeah.
But when we're a part of a group and we're all going after the same thing, we're all congruent with the same value, you get the gold of having different people's perspective take on like, well, I heard Abi and Justin say this, or when they talked about compassion, this is what I thought.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually watched this happen in the LFA call. We were talking about you had just done the session about being powerful
mm-hmm.
and like taking ownership over your own life. And mm-hmm. there were some people who piped up and they were like, yes, this made the entire course worth it. I have been waiting for this to feel powerful.
Yes.
And then on the other hand, you had people who were like, man, I just felt like I just spent 10 weeks realizing that I could have a voice and I could have compassion on myself, and now I just feel like I've been punched in the gut because I'm being told to be powerful, and I've spent my whole life trying to be powerful, because everyone needs different things at different times, right? Some people need the validation and the compassion. Some people need the empowerment.
Yes.
Come on.
Yes.
But that's the gold that you get inside of a group is
mm-hmm.
when you begin to hear those different perspectives, those different takes on the same things that are going on, you begin to realize I have more to bring to the table than I realized.
Mm-hmm.
All the things we've already said. I'm not alone.
It establishes balance.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Will you tell the story of the week that you led the validation? What did you call it? The validation chair. So you can just explain what it was like for your session.
Oh, the chair of awesome.
Yep, but you did
that
the
one?
validation one for this round.
Yes, I think I know what you're talking about.
Don't you remember? I messaged you after it because so many people, and then they went on and they just kept validating each other on Facebook afterwards, and then the chair validation.
Yes. Okay, yeah. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm with you. Yeah. Yes. So, I did a session. I called it what did I call it? Like the chair of anti-judgment or something.
Mm-hmm.
And basically we had as many people in the group as we could get through in an amount of time. We gave them the challenge, threw down the gauntlet, like, I want you to share with the group some of the things that it is that you judge yourself the most for. So whether it's you judge yourself for your masculinity or your femininity, or being emotionally vulnerable, or you don't think you're smart enough, or you don't think you're kind enough, or
mm-hmm.
I mean the vast array of things that people talk about. But again, it all comes down to those similar few things, right?
Yeah.
And then I had the group validate each other when they shared, because it's not about me leading people through things. It's that you get the effect when it's the group doing
mm-hmm.
it. And it just became that it took on a life of its own. I was like, okay, so we're going to have like 1 or 2 people validate after each person so we can get through as many as we can. But you just couldn't. I couldn't shut them up. But it was this really, really beautiful. These are some of my favorite moments where someone's being heard in a space that feels really vulnerable. Again, it doesn't have to be your secret sin. It doesn't have to be this really dark place. It's just a place that's vulnerable. It's something that, like, gosh, I feel like your response to me could really affect me in a positive or a negative way.
Mm-hmm.
And you watched people step into that space of vulnerability, and the whole room just want to love on them, just
mm-hmm.
want to validate them, want to affirm them, want to say, you're not alone. I love you. I see you. I believe in you. And I think what's really profound about this is it doesn't have to be the most profound response that you get from somebody.
Yeah.
You know, I think often we get really shut down from showing up for people in vulnerable moments because we think, I don't know what to say. I don't want to say the wrong thing. I don't want to, I don't have some profound spiel to give somebody. All I have is I love you. All I have is I see you. But that is enough.
Come on.
You watch that be enough over and over and over again. People saying just the simplest, I love you, I see you, I believe in you, you're not alone. And then people are weeping, or
come on,
just having their lives transformed in a moment because they feel seen and accepted in a space that they've really judged, and that they have found it really hard to believe that they could be loved in.
It's interesting because I've led groups in this for years and years and years. This is what I've done, is healing in groups. But this is the first year when we created the immersion program that I actually saw that you could create the same thing online that you could do in person. I'd never seen that before. And it has been so special. It's why we're doing a round 2, because I'm watching something happen. I don't know how to explain it. It feels like magic. It feels like you're getting to be a part of something. To me, it's heaven on earth when you're a part of a group. And the beautiful thing is, Justin mentioned this the other day, all the people who sign up for Living Fully Alive listen to the Connected Life. And so we have some common core values, like they're okay with joking, and they're okay with being real, and they're okay with being messy and vulnerable, or they at least want that, or they have a value for that. And so there's these common core values that people come into Living Fully Alive with, and then you're being taught core values about how you function. And so there's this group healing. We're going after this together. We're fighting for each other. Like, you're having a bad day, I'm pulling you up. I'm having a bad day, I'm letting you pull me up. And watching, I mean, I can't tell you how many stories I've heard of, even like, I was listening to this one who their kids play Mario Kart online together. They live in separate places in the country, but they're like, families are becoming friends. And this sense of I'm not alone, and I have people who get me, and people coming alive to purpose. It's so powerful and intoxicating. That's why we're doing it again, because I could feel it. And actually, it's why we're starting a program for anyone who's ever done LFA that monthly you can be a part of. Justin doesn't know about this, but it's coming. It's going to be called
being surprised for the very first time.
But I mean, me and Flo planned it out.
Oh,
but
cool.
But to create a platform for after LFA is over, like I'm watching this sense of community transform people's lives. And I know this is the thing that works, that heals, that brings us back together, that puts us back in place. And so I have come so alive this season, seeing it, being like, oh, I feel that purpose feeling again.
Right.
I feel that, and me and Justin talked about this. We're meant to create a tribe of people who feel alone across the planet, who haven't found people who have the same relationship with God, and who want emotional healing and breakthrough. And it is so much easier to not be the only person plowing through something. When you're confronting your family for the first time, it's so much easier to be in a group where so many people have done that, and you have experience, and you have older people who are like, you're going to make it through this, and you have younger people who are like inspiring you to be more brave. And it's just so beautiful. So, if you've ever done LFA and you're interested in the monthly thing that we're creating, I will give you all the information after I give it to Justin. But you can email us at Justin and Abi.
At lfa@stumvalconsulting.com.
Yeah, you can email us about that. We're going to start it soon after I tell Justin about it. And then, but it's going to be so good. We're going to have those monthly, we're going to have every other month check-ins, where you get to actually experience this group healing dynamic and small groups and all that stuff.
So good.
And then LFA, we're doing it again. And I honestly feel such like passion, not in a salesy way, but there is like this feels like a divine moment to me for this deep connection that people, because the world has been separated. So many people have been in isolation, have been in lockdowns, have been shut down. There's so much trauma that the whole world just went through. Everybody is like braced up and dealing with all of their deepest crap they've ever dealt with, and have no idea what they're doing and how to get through and how to get out of the trauma. And so reconnection and feeling a part of something feels so necessary right now. So if you're listening to this and you're like, I want to be a part of a group like this, we'd love to have you join us. You can message, you can go
email us.
Oh, no, you can just go to the website.
Oh, go to the website. You mean to participate in Living Fully Live? Go to Justin and Abi, that's abi.com.
And then we're talking about specifically the immersion program. I love the course. It's unbelievable. It's going to give you great logical tools, but the immersion...
And you'll go through a heart process. But the immersion program takes and implements it into community and everything.
Where you're experiencing it regularly.
Yeah.
Do you have anything you'd add, Ruth?
Yeah, I mean, I think probably just to say, when I remember when I started leading groups online, I was super skeptical because I'd led them in person, and there's a magic, right?
Yes.
About creating a group and everyone being in the same room and everyone's in it together. And I started leading them online, and I thought, this is going to be so lame. It's going to feel cold and awkward and disconnected. But it is not. Like, I have had to eat my humble pie over and over and over again as you watch these magical moments online, like on a screen. People all over the world or all over the country in different time zones reaching out and taking a risk and being vulnerable and being loved by each other. And I think it's just a testimony to the fact that people want this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, I think part of the reason why it works online is because everybody wants to belong.
Absolutely.
So if you are feeling skeptical about joining an online group, and I'd throw you a challenge and say, give it a go. But more than that, I'd say it's just human nature to want to belong. It's human nature to want to feel a part of something bigger than yourself. And I think if you give people a space to do that, they'll take it with both hands.
Yeah.
And that's what we see happen.
That's so good. Well, Ruth, I love getting to talk to you today, and I love you sharing. It's so easy. I'm just like, I'm literally just sitting down with one of my best friends and getting to exchange. And I walk away feeling like this was something for me, just getting to spend time with you. So
you experienced life in this group because you belong here. I literally felt validated the whole time. I was like, I've always felt this. I feel more alive in groups. This is I'm like, I love when science backs up something I intuitively have always known.
Yeah.
That's also actually maybe even just to interject this point, like, I'm definitely more introverted than Abi is.
Yes, yeah.
Definitely more introverted. Like, probably prefer more smaller settings or like one-on-one settings. And I would often use that as kind of a protection mechanism against wanting to belong to a group and wanting to be a part of a group. Like, I'm just introverted, I don't need that, blah, 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 blah. But there is something, whether you're an introvert or you're an extrovert, or whether you feel like groups are for you or groups are not for you, I have experienced as an introvert so much healing and so much joy and so much life, and a part in a space inside of your heart and your soul that begins to come alive inside of a group that it just can't in a one-on-one setting.
Well, what's interesting is I just had somebody write into me who said they were terrified to participate in the group for all 13 weeks. And this last week they decided to share for the first time, and they had never been met. Like, they were terrified of it. And they were like, I don't even know what I shared, but they were like, I've never been met with so many people who wanted to love and believe in me. I felt so like they wanted to hear from me. They wanted to hear what I had to say. They were rooting for me. And she was like, the entire course would be worth this one moment. And but it was also beautiful because she's like, I knew I wasn't ready for that until this point. And so she sat back and watched from the outside over and over and over again until it hit the right point. And so, if you're an introvert and this scares you, most of the people who've gotten the most breakthrough from my healing stuff that I've offered are the people who are the most terrified of me and the most terrified of what I'm talking about. But something inside of them, you were. But there was something inside of you, same with everyone. I hear this over and over again. There's something inside of me that wants freedom. So even though I feel terrified of what you're talking about and being a part of something like that, I feel terrified of vulnerability. I feel terrified of being known and seen. I feel terrified of having a voice. I feel terrified of feeling my emotions and having compassion for myself. I feel terrified of it. But there's something inside of me that's like, I'm miserable or I want out or I want wholeness. Like, there's just a little yes that was enough for them to step in.
So good.
That's true about you, huh, Ruth?
Oh, yeah. I had the yes the size of a mustard seed.
The no,
Squeaky.
the size of a giant. No! Yes.
I can't tell you how many times Abi pinned me to the floor and screamed, yes!
Mhm.
And I'm screaming, no!
I can't tell you
I
how
don't want freedom.
terrified you were of me.
That's
And
true.
You were just
Oh, yeah.
screaming, no, get away from me the entire time.
Emotionally, internally.
Emotionally.
With my hay ties.
Yeah. You're
Your
like,
ties. Yep.
Anyways.
All right.
Well, that's it. We're done. This group is over. Go away. Turn this off. I'm done with you. All of you.
The introverts are done.
I'm done with Ruth. I'm done with Abi. And I'm done with everyone listening to me. I'm walking out.
All right.
Okay.
Go
Dad's
play with your
abandoning
turtles,
us.
Justin.
Go back to your turtles.
Uh-huh. Oh, Ruth
Love
related
you.
to me with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles while she stayed with us. That was wonderful.
I know you got an 80s fan, a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles fan. I just was happy that you guys could relate and I didn't have to listen.
to me.
That's why groups are great, because when you're
Yeah.
not interested, someone else
Somebody
is.
will be in this group. I'm going to go find him. All right. Go away.
Bye.